Hump Day. Welcome into a Wednesday, April 9th edition of Daily Faceoff Live. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk, and the show is brought to you by Bet365. Download the app, use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We're streaming live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, and today I'm joined by Carter Hutton once again. Huts, how's it going? Happy Masters Week. We were talking about that before the show.
Yes, Masters weeks. Ty, you don't know how many times I was sitting on a bench on Sunday as the backup goalie, and the guys were in the middle of a game, and guys were like, "Hey, Huts, go down the tunnel and see where we're at here." Because you have the matinee games, trying to figure out. Everyone's worried about their picks, not really worried about what's going on in the rink. It's a good time of year right now.
I absolutely love that. We're going to be joined by Jon Goyens in a few minutes. We're going to talk a little bit about the fact that the Ottawa Senators are playoff bound for the first time in 7 years. But to kick off the show, let's go to another Canadian team that hasn't quite clinched, but that win last night, Huts, for the Montreal Canadiens, basically all but did it for them. They beat the Detroit Red Wings 4-1 in a game where not only were the Wings up 1-0, you had JT Compher missing a wide open net, and then it was all Montreal, a 4-1 final. Carter, what do you make of the Habs all but sealing up their playoff spot?
Honestly, on such a big game at home, they started slow, right? I thought they would come out a little sharper, and they didn't, and they found their game. It just shows you some key saves early by Montembeault was a huge, set the table for this game, and then they fought back in this game. I thought Cam Talbot was really good at times, and they stuck with it. And then on a weird play, right, Josh Anderson goes in on the forecheck, player loses his helmet, he gets open back door. It makes that argument if you should have took him, you shouldn't have, but that being said, the Wings played well. I thought Talbot was good, but this Montreal Canadiens team and this energy in this building, the Bell Center, you can feel it through the TV. And I've been victim of that before where they've come back in games against us. The energy and overtime and where it's at, this is going to be a fun place to be here. I know they're not clinched yet. It's just a matter of time here, Ty, before it's all said and done.
Yeah, Detroit, New York, the other New York, Columbus, all sitting at 79 points, but they all only have 5 games left. So if any of those teams were to go undefeated from here till the end of the season, all Montreal has to do is go 1-2-1 in their final 4 games, and they're in. So it's basically a formality at this point. And listen, the playoffs and being on the edge of a playoff berth isn't the only thing that has Habs fans nice and fired up this morning. I know you can see on the bottom bar, Bienvenue, Ivan Demidov. I don't know how good your French is, Carter, so you won't be able to tell how hard I butchered that. But 49 points in 65 KHL games, and Habs fans are fired up about this kid.
Yes, and this is a guy that in 20 of those games, he played 10 minutes or less, right? He kind of was in a weird situation there where he would be on the top line, and then going into playoffs, he was the 13th forward. He was a healthy scratch at times, and then he'd come in and he was the leading scorer in the playoffs as well. So just an odd situation, but this guy is dynamic. He's 19 years old. He can do it all, and he's going to be a good fit. This is a situation where I really don't think you can lose in this situation if you're Montreal. If he goes there and it doesn't go to plan right away, it's great exposure for him, great experience. But that being said, I see him fitting well in that second line with Newhook and Laine, just bringing another element to this team. And you start looking at the likes of Kucherov and Kaprizov, the comparisons of what he can bring to this team. And, man, there's got to be a lot of excitement in Montreal because I'm feeling it here. Another Canadian team in the mix and a very exciting player coming over to North America.
Yeah, and I like the point you just brought up on that second line there, because that first line, Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, they've got something there. And that's 3, Slavkovsky, obviously the youngest of the bunch, but even Suzuki and Caulfield, still guys who I think you can look at it and go, okay, they're just entering their primes. And then that second line, you slide Demidov in there, and then you have that third line, which has some absolute warriors. You talked about the impact that Josh Anderson made, and it's like, man, all of a sudden the vibes in Montreal are different. That blue line is young, very talented. They got the odds-on Calder Trophy favorite Lane Hutson back there. Between the pipes, Montembeault, I know we talked about him kind of whatever it was 10, 14 days ago. He seems to have snapped and turned things around. It's just like all signs pointing in the right direction right now for Montreal. And this Demidov ad, I also love the swagger, call it cockiness. He's got like a $250,000 bonus if he wins the Conn Smythe this year.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of to play for too. And I like the idea, right? We talk about Mishkov, like how his game adjusted, once Tortorella was on and the leash was kind of off him, where I don't see Martin St. Louis having the same impact. Yes, you don't want to rock the boat, right? Because his team is playing well. And that's what, like you touched on, that top line seems untouchable, right? They're going to stay in place. They're rolling so well. But that being said, you spot them in right things. You let them run a little bit. You see where this power play is at. And then the number one unit usually gets about a minute 15. Then the other chance is about, 40 seconds when the second unit gets out. But I could see him being a staple on that power play for years to come once he settles in here, Ty.
Also, just from a draft perspective, we got a question in here from Peter who said, do you think Chicago will regret not selecting Demidov now that he's come over earlier than expected? And that's another sort of parallel with Matvei Michkov. Remember that year with Michkov, it was kind of like, all right, is it Bedard or Michkov? And then the news about, okay, he might have to wait 3 years to come over, whatever. That's what caused Michkov to fall all the way to 8. And Demidov, he ends up going 5 to Montreal. And now you're sitting here going, man, maybe they got the second best player in the draft here? It's crazy.
Yeah, it looks like it right now, right? And I guess that's always the worry of, the draft with the KHL and where guys are at, and they're trying to hold guys and the negotiations that go on with it. But hopefully this is a bridge that we build here as we move forward, right? Seeing these guys come over and have success. And I think it sets the landscape more to get these guys over quicker. And that being said, at 5th right now, if he comes over and he answers the bell, from what I've read about scouts in Montreal watching him play, he seems like a no-miss player. Like this, he's going to be dynamic. He's going to bring such an element to this team, and it's going to be exciting. I think everyone in Montreal and across hockey is excited to see his debut when he gets here.
Yeah, big news out of Montreal. Pretty shocking as well. Let's talk about some other big news that just broke earlier this morning. Gabe Landeskog is going to the American League on a conditioning stint. The team making it official earlier today, and this is something that we've kind of been, talking about for a few months, but even as late as halfway through this season, a Gabe Landeskog comeback felt like a bit of a long shot. Huts, he hasn't played since he lifted the Stanley Cup over his head on June 26th of 2022. That's 1,018 days ago. We're going to show you stats of Gabe Landeskog. The last time he played in a full regular season, Huts, you were still an active player.
You might have scored on me that year. Who knows? He had 30 tucks, so who knows? There's a good chance he did. So it's wild. It's been such a long run without him, and I guess we've been teased by this, right? You want to see him back, and he's a well-loved player too, right, Ty? I feel like everyone kind of likes Landeskog, his character, winning the cup, and what he brings to this team. But that being said, this is exciting, right? And I think if you're the Dallas Stars, you have to worry him coming back in the lineup. And he is a player that does a lot of work in front of the net and below the goal line too. So if he's healthy enough and he can get back in, it's a matter of getting his timing. But the fact of the matter, these are things he can work on, the physical play, the wall play, and now the conditioning stint. He's going to get those reps in, and that is exciting for this Colorado Avalanche, and more importantly for Gabriel Landeskog, right? We saw him in the Amazon Prime series, just what goes into it and trying to come back and a young family and, being able to have your kids around it. It means a lot to me, right? I think what the game means to people more than just wins and losses, right? So for him, this is an exciting time, and just to get back in a professional game, what a road back, and I'm sure he's put his miles in, so it's exciting.
Yeah, and even listen, you can debate about what he'll have in the tank. I know halfway through this year when people were talking about a Jonathan Toews return, and they're like, whoa, you just expect him after 2 years off to jump into a lineup and make an impact? And it's like, hey, Jonathan Toews played regular season games earlier or sooner than Landeskog did. We've seen him in an NHL game more recently than Landeskog. Everyone seems to just be kind of forgetting that it'll be very, very difficult, not just to jump into any NHL game, but to jump into a Stanley Cup playoff game. But regardless of if they're using him in the top 6 or the bottom 6, the emotional lift that this is going to give this Colorado team, even if you're one of the newcomers who's playing there, because basically half their roster is new this season, if you see the captain, Gabe Landeskog, sitting in his stall after seeing everything he did to get back in the lineup, how are you not a little bit more fired up? How do you not have a little bit more juice knowing that that guy's in your lineup now?
Yeah, you have to, right? And I think just in general, knowing that he's so close is inspiring, right? You look at the additions they've added. They've gone out and they've tried to make this team better, that they know they can win now. And you talk about, I think we're not far removed, Ty, from talking about McKinnon, Makar, and Landeskog, kind of in the big three almost for Colorado and Rantanen. And obviously that addition when they were there was such an element. And again, you have McKinnon, you have Makar, you add Nelson, you add 2 goalies. They've just become such a heavy dynamic in Colorado. And when you look at the West, we talk about Dallas, we talk about the Jets. I think if you see Landeskog come out, there is a mental psyche that just goes throughout your team. And I've been in that situation. I remember when I was out one year and then Pekka Rinne coming back, I could just feel the energy in our locker room. No offense to me, but I'm not Pekka Rinne. So when you get star players back, or if Shea Weber was out of the lineup, or different players I played with at times where they were out, they come back, there's a weight lifted off shoulders, right? And I think that's going to be important. And this would be the extreme comeback because it's been so long since we've seen them.
Speaking of insane comebacks, how about last night in Dallas as the Vancouver Canucks were down 3 goals in the final minute against the Dallas Stars, and then it was Atu Ratu, Pia Suter, and Pia Suter again tying that game. Kiefer Sherwood bangs home the game-winning goal, and the Victory Plus network in Dallas, they had on their postgame, they said it was the first time in NHL history a team has scored 3 goals in the final minute and gone on to win the game in absolutely insane comeback. And listen, it doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for the Vancouver Canucks and their playoff hopes. It just basically pushes off elimination another day because, again, even if they were to win out, all Minnesota would have to do is win one of their final 4. So it's all but a formality that Vancouver has done, but that comeback is still absolutely insane.
Yeah, it was wild too. And you know what's funny is when we talked about, going over the show today and it was early in the morning, I get the email and I hadn't watched this game. It was 5-2. I had turned it off. I went to bed. And so now I'm watching the game, the recap, like unbelievable comeback. And for me, there's a couple key plays right in this game. I think Connor Garland's 3 assists are so underrated, how good of a player he is, how sneaky he is, what he brings to this team. And there was a play when it was 5-2. Wyatt Johnson had a puck on a stick and he gets his stick jack where they keep the puck in the zone and it changes the whole dynamic of the last minute. And 3 goals in the last minute was unbelievable. And you could kind of feel the energy as they were watching it. And you can feel that Dallas Stars start to fumble. But again, Casey DeSmith was in net. Not to take away from Casey DeSmith. I think it's a different story if Jake Ottinger's in net. But this is a good learning experience, I think, for the Dallas Stars. And I think this happening now is better than in one of the games in the playoffs. Because this is one of those games where if you blow a game like this in the playoffs, you may not recover from this. This is a tough one, I think, mentally to deal with. But now they can park it and move on. And as for the Canucks, too little, too late, right? It's one of those seasons where I guess expectations were so high. It's been tough. And looking at it now, they kind of made the bed that they got to live in, especially the way the season went.
Yeah, and I think this could be a really big summer of change in Vancouver. Obviously, a lot of questions around Rick Tocchet behind the bench, but a guy like Brock Besser, is he going to walk to free agency? What do they still do with Elias Pettersson? A lot of changes could be happening in the next 3 months out on the West Coast. The flip side of this game is the Dallas Stars, like you said, and sure, maybe a lesson that is a nice kick in the pants right now before the playoffs, but they let a point slip away, and now they're 4 back of the Winnipeg Jets instead of being 3 back of the Winnipeg Jets. And listen, I think every hockey fan who isn't a fan of the Dallas Stars or Colorado Avalanche wants to see Avs versus Stars round 1, but I'm sure the Dallas Stars don't want to see Colorado round 1, especially with the Landeskog news, for them to let these points slip. And now, I mean, Winnipeg is still clearly in the driver's seat for that top spot in the conference, which would mean, again, a softer first-round matchup. Getting Minnesota instead of getting Colorado is a big difference, and also getting home ice for round 2 and round 3. Like, that's huge, and Dallas letting those points slip, like, it's not inconsequential that they lost that point last night is kind of my point.
Yeah, they're at a point where, trying to get that first in the division is huge, right? This battle of Dallas, Colorado, and you can make the argument, right? I've heard it many times. If it's not 1 through 8, right? If we switch back to that, you wouldn't lose a team like that, Dallas or Colorado, in the first round. But that being said, it creates good rivalries, right? And again, you've been on the cutting edge of this. You get to see the Kings and the Oilers again. I know it's been one-sided, but that being said, this could be a rivalry we see for the near future here. And for me, the pressure seems to be on the Dallas Stars, in my opinion, because if I want to lump them into a team, I consider them kind of the San Jose Sharks now, right? Where the San Jose Sharks were always good. It always felt like it was going to be their year when Marleau and Thornton and Pavelski were. Now Dallas seems to be that team, right? They've had wins. They've been to the Cup final, but they just can't seem to get over the hump. So this is going to be a big challenge, and it looks like they're going to get a very, very tough first-round test with the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, a handful of first-round matchups kind of all but locked up now. Dallas and Colorado seems to be locked. LA, Edmonton is going to be a thing again for a 4th straight season. And yesterday, Florida beats Toronto, which means we should be getting Tampa, Florida in round 1, but that one's still a little bit more up in the air. Before we get to Jon Goyens, let's talk about one team that was officially eliminated last night, and it was the Buffalo Sabres. You could argue they were really eliminated back in January when they had their big slide, but the E appeared to their name last night, and it's 14th straight year with no playoffs in Buffalo, the longest streak in professional sports. And sure, you look at this graphic and they went 8-2 in their last 10 games. My point is kind of, man, this little run of 8-2 better not give this front office any hope that this group and this core can turn it around. I think they need to make big changes this summer.
I do too. And again, the April run at this point, who cares, right? It's one of those ones where, you're still playing for pride and these guys are prideful, but at the end of the day, it's irrelevant to what this team needed this year. They needed to have a good start, a good, before Christmas, and they fell so far behind they could never catch up. And that being said, Tage Thompson's had an unbelievable year, right? 44 goals. It looks like he's trying to catch Leon or at least get to 50, but that being said, just the inconsistencies of the team and some of these younger players, they've given big contracts. It hasn't worked out. Dylan Cousins being moved. We'll see how that handles out with Josh Norris if he can stay healthy. There's so many storylines. And I guess it's the same song and dance, right? I've been through it. I played 3 seasons there, and I was part of the problem as well. It's not like I went in there and solidified what we could do and who we could be. But, they need a new structure, culture. I'm not sure what it is, but at the end of the day, you have to find a way to win games. And that being said, obviously, JJ Peterka will be an interesting one. I know Frank's spotlighted him as a player that could be under an offer sheet. So, and guys like that just don't grow on trees here. And going 8-2, now you're hurting your draft lottery chances too. At this point, when you're eliminated, you almost wanted to go 2-8 in those last 10. But that being said, disappointing. And there's nowhere else that I want to see a team win as Buffalo, but it just seems nothing seems to be working, Ty.
Yeah, there was a point, I think it would have been 4 or 5 weeks ago, where they would have had an 18% chance of picking in the top 2. That's now cratered down to a 10.2% chance of picking in the top 2. There's an 87.9% chance, good math by me on the fly, that they pick 9th or 10th overall now. Like, it's just, it's dumb. And part of the problem here, and it goes back to management a little bit, is at the deadline, they had Jordan Greenway and Jason Zucker. Okay, look at the prices that, you could throw Trent Frederick out there. You could look at Justin Brazeau in Boston. Like, those kind of bottom 6, middle 6 guys got good prices at the deadline. And instead of trading them off and then just going back to them in the summer when they're free agents, they signed the 2 of them to contracts that'll be on their books for a combined $8.875 million next season. Like, to me, this front office has just totally lost the plot. And if I'm a Sabres fan, I don't see how you could have hope that Kevin Adams is going to pull a couple of rabbits out of his hat and get this thing straightened out in one summer.
Yeah, they have a lot of work to do, right? And again, there is some positives to go off. I think some of the players have played well. There's been times, obviously, Rasmus Dahlin coming out, and I think he got taken out of context a bit about wanting to leave Buffalo. He wants to win. He's a competitive guy. He was that way when he was 18 years old in the league. And I think they're wasting a lot of talent, too, without playing a complete game. But for me, the fact of the matter is you go back to the well and hiring Lindy Ruff, which doesn't make any sense to me, right? We look at teams that are taking a step forward into the future. You look at Washington Capitals. They go on a limb and they hire Spencer Carberry, who's going to win the Jack Adams. I don't think there's a conversation here that he has a really high percentage to win it. And he was a first-time head coach, and he's done so well. And I think you need to evolve, and you need to have guys that have communication with their players. And we see it all the time. You look at Laviolette with the Rangers, I feel like he's lost the room and what's gone on. I know there's a little mix there with Chris Drury, how that was handled. But all that being said, you need to be on the pulse, and you need to know what's going to move a younger player. And I feel like Buffalo has really dropped the ball on this one again.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like 12 months from now, we're just going to be talking about, again, the Sabres being eliminated. But we'll push that to the side and talk about a team that did end their playoff drought. Let's get to the Coach's Room with Jon Goyens. It's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972. You can check out their large selection of Canadian lab-grown diamonds and mined diamonds, and find out more about the Charm Diamond Flexity Card, which allows you to get approved for no interest financing on your purchase in minutes. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Former QMJHL head coach Jon Goyens joins us on the show. He's also a part of the Montreal Canadiens radio broadcast. And because of that, you had a chance, actually, let's kick off with this, to chat with Travis Green not that long ago. What did you learn from your conversation with Travis Green before I ask you about the goaltending?
Yeah, we just talk about the game. I go pretty much throughout the league, try to talk to coaches, how they feel about their teams. And, some of the stuff is, off the record or whatever. But after that conversation, it was pretty evident to me that there were a couple areas that really stuck out. One of them was timely saves, which are going to be our first topic. And the other part is checking. And checking is not what a lot of people think it is. It's not about the big hit. It's about, who your guy is through all 3 zones. There is no confusion. There is no, I didn't know, or lack of awareness. Checking is awareness and pushing players to the outside and understanding who do you have, when do you have them, and when are the possible switch offs. And that was very evident through our conversation that those were some of the areas that stuck out for him in their push to make the playoffs here for the first time in 7 years.
I'm probably the wrong guy to be asking the goaltending question in all of this, but it's been a journey for them when you go back through the Korpisalo sort of debacle, if you want to call it that, and everything that happened before, all the different names they brought in. But this year they solved it with Linus Ullmark. What's been the key to the contributions from their goaltending?
Well, especially of late, it's without getting technical or anything like that, the technical part that I'm going to talk about is the calmness in the crease. They don't seem, especially of late, there's some athletic saves, which you're always going to need from a goalie, but they seem to be using their size to their advantage. They seem to be calm in their crease, but none of this matters if they don't have the timely saves, which are exactly what clips I picked here over the last few games. Some are Ullmark, some are Forsberg. Both are contributing with timely saves here during this push. You look at the score here, 2-0. You're up 2-0 early. Sure, it's a simple backhand. Catch it in the breadbasket. Keep it in the breadbasket. Here's a quick 2-on-1. Blocker save. Look how calm and quick he gets back to his feet. Bit of a chaotic play here. Rebound. Boom. I love the eyes on the blocker. There's no hope save. He knows what he's doing. Here again, there's a bit of a scramble. Square to the play. Here's a mini breakaway right in tight. Simple save, no rebound. You cut out the chaos. Here's Brad Marchand. Great pass, great save, right? Forsberg's right there. And then here, you got Tampa. It's a wagon right now. First you stop Gord. Now you're going to stop two of the top 10 players in the league. And he makes that save basically on his feet. And he was already ready for any potential second opportunities. Again, eyes on the blocker. You look at the timing. You look at the score on the clock. And again, that's against Gensel from Kucherov, who can make anybody miss. And then you get Brendan Hagel off of Four Nations Cup down on another breakaway. Now here's the power play. Late in the game, up 2-1. Here's a slot pass, and it's the save and how quickly he's back up to the feet, eyes on the puck. It's all about the timely saves for the Ottawa Senators right now between the pipes. It gives a ton of confidence to the players.
Yeah, and I had a great goalie coach one time. He used to say, it's not how many you make, it's when you make them. And again, that's a good highlight there, obviously. John, about this team, right? It's been a while now of just not having success, right? We talk about the core and where they've been at with this group, kind of similar to the Leafs, right? We talked about the core and they've been judged by their playoff success. What has changed for this team to succeed? Their commitment away from the puck to be ready for the playoffs. What has gone on with the Ottawa Senators to be the difference this year with this core?
Well, I think it's just like any team's maturation process. You got to give up something to move on as a team, to develop as a team. And sometimes that might be some personal goals. You guys were just talking about the Buffalo Sabres. They refuse to defend on a consistent basis. Let's call it the way it is. 41% of their cap is spent on defensemen, and they do not defend as a team. And now you look at the Ottawa Senators, all of a sudden they defend to a man. And it doesn't matter if you're bringing up guys from the American Hockey League from Belleville or not, and the reason I say that is because I'm going to highlight a couple guys like a Matthew Highmore, or it's veterans leading the way in a David Perron and his tenacious pain in the ass style of play away from the puck that shows the rest of the guys, if you want to win, you have to track, you have to check. And checking is about knowing who's your guy, when's your guy needs to be picked up through all three zones. So let's fire up these clips. So here's a quick stretch pass. Identify these 2D are going to circle over because they want to cut off any path. Look how quickly Sanderson gets back to the puck. Boom, 5 guys tight. Now you're playing 5-on-3 in your D zone. You want that all day, every day. Here, Zub's going to recover, tracking with a purpose. Here's Amadio. He's going to get off on that back hip. He's going to force the Columbus player to the inside. Quick stick check, up and out. Here, quick transition by Columbus. Communicate by Pinto. Identify. Now you got 3 1-on-1s down low. Now you got your 5-on-3 down low. You're going to dominate those situations. Now here's the veteran, David Perron. Look at him, get on his horse, and eliminate Lundell early. Now Luosterainen's looking around going, what happened to everybody? And he's by himself. So again, it's a 1-on-3 rush. Be 3 above the puck. Watch Matthew Highmore. He's got to identify. He does not get crisscross. And that's a guy who's and no disrespect, he goes between the American Hockey League and the NHL, and he's defending the first line of the Florida Panthers. Watch Dylan Cousins. He does an over back check. He recognizes who has who, and then he takes Samskovich into the corner and eliminates his man. 3, 4 above puck before the blue line. What does that do to Tampa? Rim release. They love rim release. Rim release once again. Rim release down low. Boom, eliminated. You keep them having to relinquish possession, you're giving yourself an opportunity to succeed in the D zone. What happens? A holy shit moment. Guy goes down. You need your safety valve. And Pinto steps up, boxes him out. Great stick left. And there's nobody necessarily blowing up anybody. Once again, now you got Stützle. He's trying to steer. He's doing his best to steer. He identifies Montempalo has Kucherov. He cuts off Braden Point. That allows their D to get the puck, and they're up and out. That's checking. Checking isn't about smoking people. It's about recognizing the path that the offensive players want to take.
So 30 seconds or less, how much of a problem do you think they could be for, say, the Toronto Maple Leafs if they do end up getting them in round one?
I think they could be a problem because I think potentially third line scoring could be a big difference for Ottawa.
Interesting stuff. One of those series, man, it's going to be a bloodbath if those two end up meeting. John, appreciate your time. Thanks for popping on.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's get to our hashtag askdfo question. Actually, before I do that, I want to remind everybody, Michael Andlauer, the Senators owner, is going to be on the sheet with Jeff Merrick today. That will go at, I believe, 3 o'clock Eastern or just after Jeff gets his show going. So tune into the sheet every day right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. Daily Faceoff inbox question, Huts. J-Rock was in with one. He said, of the teams who are in the playoffs, which one of the 16 makes for the most interesting story if they win the Stanley Cup? I mean, Landeskog returning to the lineup and going on a run with the Avs would certainly be something. Montreal as some crazy 8 seed with all that young talent would also be a great story. Ovi in his record-breaking year would be a good one too. What team would you pick as the best true story?
Oh, wow. I think you hit a lot of them, too. There's obviously so many different storylines. I think you could add the St. Louis Blues in there, right? This epic run that they went on, post-Four Nations Cup, the Jordan Binnington push again. And again, I think there's a lot of hype around the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? The Craig Berube coming in, tree-living what he's done. So all those storylines being said, it's going to be an exciting time. And I guess maybe the other one for me would be, imagine Brad Marchand lifting the cup over his head in the Florida Panthers jersey. I think would be very wild to see where his career has come from. So there's honestly so many good storylines. I know it's kind of established now. It feels like we have our team set. We thought it'd be a little more of a race, but with what Montreal has done and what has St. Louis has done, those would be the two for me, squeaking in and coming in hot.
Yeah, Florida's an interesting one. Just it'd be a second straight cup and 3 finals in 4 years, and they'd start to just get they wouldn't be there yet, but they'd be right around the edge of the D word, the old dynasty. Let's move along. Daily bets brought to you by Bet365. Download the app, use the promo code NATION. Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner, and every suspenseful moment in between is amazing. An official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app. Use the code NATION to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. 2 picks for tonight. Jake Gensel had hit this in 5 straight, missed last game by 1 shot. I'm playing him with Brock Faber. Faber only needs to go 2+. This line is crazy. He's hit this in 7 straight games, so it's plus 237. And then the Minnesota Wild. Listen, they're playing a Sharks team that's lost 3 in a row. Don't have a ton to play for. In Minnesota, they got a chance to really take hold of that Western Conference wildcard spot and basically all but lock up their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I like Mini on the puck line. And then outside of this, Huts, who's your pick to win the Masters?
Ooh, I don't know. I can't give that away yet on the pool. You got to go Scotty Scheffler, I guess, because he's the easiest one to go with. But we got a big pool, so there's a lot of time to tell. The other bet I would like tonight, I'd take the under in the Leafs Lightning game. I think back-to-back Stolars and Vasilevsky, it's going to be a lot of goaltending tonight.
Don't mind that pick at all. We're going to wrap up with garbage time for today and some sad news from the prospect world. Jets prospect Chaz Lucius releasing this statement saying he's being forced to retire from hockey at the age of 21 after being diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Basically, he'd been fighting injuries for quite some time and thought it was just bad luck. Turns out he has this EDS. I'm really sad at the age of 21. A pretty good prospect who was playing in the American League having to hang up the skates.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, obviously. For me, I was so fortunate to get to play until I was ready to retire, right? And it's something that comes with this game and the physicality of it just to stay healthy to begin with. But someone like this, obviously, there's a lot of life left. So you wish him the best, post-hockey and, thinking about him and his family, obviously, today.
Yeah, you honestly give him, as weird as this sounds, a little bit of credit for just kind of putting the rest of his life first. I mean, like, man, if I just keep doing this, it's not going to get better. So sending our best to Chaz Lucius and his family. As we wrap up again, remember, Michael Anlauer coming up on the sheet a little bit later today. And it's almost playoff season here at Daily Faceoff. And we are your ultimate destination for live updates, expert analysis, everything you need throughout the postseason. And hey, if you want to rep your team in style, nationgear.ca. We got some fresh lines of playoff merch coming over there as well. Huts, you're back in the seat with me tomorrow, so we will see you then. Everybody in the YouTube, you were great. We'll chat with you all back right here tomorrow at noon Eastern. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content, from daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.